When you think of The Lord of the Rings, you probably think of hobbits, elves, maybe the One Ring to rule them all. Pure fantasy, right? But what if I told you that for some of the most powerful people out there, in tech, in politics, it's not just a story. It's something more like a blueprint. Let's dig into why that is. So really, why does Silicon Valley love The Lord of the Rings so much? I mean, is this just a bunch of nerdy founders giving a little nod to their favorite books? Or is there something, way deeper going on here? A kind of ambitious ideology hiding right in front of us? Well, once you start looking for it, the evidence it's everywhere. You've got Palantir Technologies, Anduril Industries, Valor Ventures, Mithril Capital, Varda, Narya. I mean, the list just keeps going. And we're not talking about tiny startups here. These are huge major players in tech, in defense, in finance, and they're all deliberately naming themselves after things from Middle-earth. It's a really clear pattern. Okay, but here's the thing. This whole obsession, it's not just stuck in Silicon Valley boardrooms. Nope. It has found a pretty powerful home in the political world, too. And that suggests there's this shared worldview that sees Tolkien's work as, well, way more than just a fantasy story to escape into. I mean, listen to this. That is a direct quote from Italy's Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni. When she was a teenager, she was part of these youth groups that ran festivals. They were called Camp Hobbit, and they used them to bring in new members. For her, Tolkien's world became this sort of foundational text for her entire political identity, like an actual guide for how society ought to work. So, here's the key takeaway, right? For this very specific and very influential group, we're talking tech billionaires, certain political ideologues. Middle-earth isn't a fantasy land you escape to. It's a model. It's a model for reshaping our world, right here, right now. These guys aren't just fans. They see themselves as builders. And this fantasy world, it's their instruction manual. All right, so let's zero in on some of the key players in Silicon Valley who are actually trying to build this new reality. You'll see their companies are almost direct reflections of the power fantasies you find in Tolkien's books. Okay, check this out. It's fascinating how directly these company names map onto concepts of power. You've got Peter Thiel, who named his massive data surveillance company Palantir, after the magical seeing stones that let you spy on your enemies. Then there's Palmer Luckey, who created a major defense tech company and called it Anduril. That's the name of the reforged sword of Aragorn, the returned king. And J.D. Vance, his venture capital firm is called Narya, which is one of the 3 elven rings of power. So you see, they're not just picking cool-sounding names. They are very deliberately claiming these symbols of incredible power for themselves. And this just perfectly highlights the massive contradiction at the heart of this whole thing. For years, Palantir's motto was literally, "Save the Shire," invoking this peaceful, simple homeland of the hobbits. Sounds pretty noble, doesn't it? But then you look at their client list. The CIA, ICE, the Department of Defense, they're building the very infrastructure of government surveillance. Yeah, and that huge disconnect was definitely not lost on their critics. Activists actually flipped the script on them, using the company's own inspiration against them with this really powerful slogan. It just perfectly called out the hypocrisy, right? Claiming you're here to protect the little guy while your biggest contracts are with the most powerful and secretive organizations on the planet. So it makes you wonder, what would Tolkien himself have thought about all this? It's really tempting to try and put him in a box to pick a side. But the truth is, the author's own life and his beliefs are full of contradictions. He's a really complex figure, and honestly, no single group can easily claim him as their own. You have to remember, Tolkien's entire worldview was forged in the absolute horror of the First World War. He fought at the Battle of the Somme, one of the deadliest battles in all of human history. He saw industrial technology used for nothing but mass slaughter. And that experience gave him this deep, lifelong hatred for what he called the machine. And he didn't just mean factories. He meant any big, complex, dehumanizing system. It's this deep distrust of power that led him to describe his own politics as leaning toward anarchism, or, and this is his own weird phrase, unconstitutional monarchy. Basically, he imagined a king with moral authority, but no actual state power to back it up. And yet through all this, he always pushed back on anyone trying to read his books as some kind of simple political allegory. And this is where it gets really complicated, right? This is the paradox that lets everyone just cherry pick what they want from his legacy.
On one hand, you have Tolkien, the fierce anti-fascist. He famously told off a German publisher who asked if he was Aryan. But on the other hand, he was a deeply traditional Catholic who dreamed of a mythic pre-industrial England. And yeah, his depiction of races like the orcs has definitely drawn criticism over the years. So you can see how different people can grab onto the parts they like, right? Tech libertarians love his distrust of the state, but they just kind of ignore his hatred of technology and industrialism. And political conservatives can embrace the tradition and hierarchy while completely setting aside his almost anarchist views on government. It's this messy, contradictory legacy that lets his work be used as a blueprint for totally different, often opposing, visions for the world.
So, how do we tie all this together? Tolkien's complicated vision and Silicon Valley's ultimate goal? Well, it all points toward a theory that's been gaining a lot of steam lately with economists and political thinkers, this idea of techno-feudalism. So what exactly is techno-feudalism? The basic idea is that we're slowly leaving capitalism behind and entering a totally new system. In this system, a tiny handful of tech giants don't just compete in the market. They basically are the market. Think about it. They own the digital land, the platforms, the cloud infrastructure. And we, the users, we're kind of like digital serfs. We pay cloud rent with our data, our attention. We just live in their digital kingdoms.
And look, this isn't some hidden conspiracy theory. It's the openly stated goal. Peter Thiel, who's really a central character in all of this, he literally wrote the book on it. It's called 0 to 1. And in it, he argues that the goal of any truly great business is to become a monopoly. His words, not mine. Competition is for losers. The whole point isn't just to win at capitalism. It's to build a fortress so big and powerful that you don't even have to play the game anymore.
And there is a very clear playbook for how to make this happen. Step 1, you get a ton of venture capital, a lot of times from Thiel's own firm, Founders Fund. Step 2, you win a few small government contracts, just to get your foot in the door. Step 3, you leverage that initial trust to get massive follow-on contracts, and then, before you know it, you've become the essential, for-profit digital backbone of the state itself. You're a private company with all the power of the government, but none of the accountability. Which brings us to our final, and maybe the most chilling parallel of all. Because in this quest to completely remake the world in their own image, these tech leaders start to look a lot less like the heroes of the story and a lot more like its ultimate villain. You see, a lot of people forget this, but in Tolkien's lore, Sauron wasn't born evil. He didn't start out as the Lord of Darkness. He was originally a Maya, which is like a divine spirit of order and craftsmanship. Tolkien himself described him as a reformer. His first big mistake wasn't pure malice. It was this obsessive, arrogant belief that he could fix the world by forcing his vision of a perfect, rational order onto everybody else. And his methods, they were seductive. He didn't show up with an army at first. He came to the elves with promises of new science and technology to help them build a better world. And the scary part is, he probably believed it. He thought his vision was for the benefit of everyone. It's the classic tyrant's playbook, isn't it? A story that starts with good intentions, but gets twisted and corrupted by an absolute need for control.
And what's really incredible is that some of these guys seem to see this in themselves. Get this quote from Palmer Luckey, the founder of Anduril. It's this moment of shocking self-awareness. He's basically asking out loud if his entire life's work, building advanced weapons, is just the inevitable result of a kid who grew up completely soaked in power fantasies.
And so that leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. When the private fantasies of a handful of powerful people become the public blueprint for all of our reality, who gets to be the hero in that story? And maybe more importantly, who gets cast as the orc? It's something we're thinking about, because more and more, their story is becoming our story.